So good morning. Thank you for joining in. This is an CYSSDE webinar on, in this case, today, specifically a focus on regulatory perspectives on ethical hacking and vulnerability assessments. And today we are welcoming two of our guest speakers, Gabriel and Mihaela. So good morning to both of you in any case. I'll start with presenting a short introduction about CYSSDE and what it is that we're doing and why we're doing those things. So CYSSDE is a collaboration. It's a European project that was started in June 2024, and that's mainly there to support the development of capabilities and capacity in Europe, specifically in terms of cybersecurity. So therefore, the title CYSSDE, specifically therefore enhancing cybersecurity capacities. There's many different things that we are doing, but the majority of things that we are known for is, of course, our open calls that we will be organizing and that we are currently organizing. But on the website, this one, the cyssde.eu website, you will be also able to find a lot more. And actually, some of this a lot more is part of what we will be talking about today. But the most important thing is, of course, is to draw your attention to the fact that we have our open call currently still active. It's today the 3rd of March, 2025, and the open call closes on the 7th of April, meaning that there's still plenty of time to go to the CYSSDE website, go to the open call application part, and then start following the procedure. The goal is to fill in the application, and after the assessments and the duly scrutinized information that you have provided us, we will potentially be able to provide you up to 200,000 euros in funding to basically do your own pen testing and vulnerability assessments. So again, the reason why we're doing this is because we are financed by the European Commission to organize these types of what we call financial support to third parties, so open calls. And the funds in this case are there specifically to help you facilitating this towards your end user organizations, or if you are yourself in a pen testing organization, or maybe if you are an end user organization to support your internal teams in creating additional insights on this. You can find a lot of documentation on the CYSSDE website, amongst other also the guide for applicants, and then obviously also the application form in itself. Don't wait until the last minute to do so. Start duly and already well prepared. There's still enough time. Next week we have a follow-up webinar after the initial webinar that we organized about a month ago, where we will be going a little bit more in detail on what the current application situation is. And we try to answer some of the challenges that we see in some of the outstanding applications, helping out those who are still trying to finalize this. Now, CYSSDE, who are we? So who is CYSSDE? We are a consortium of different cybersecurity experts from throughout Europe. Key partners include INCIBE's Spanish National Cybersecurity Competence Center, the NCC, Romania's DNSC, the Cybersecurity Strategy Office, of which we have today's Mihaela and Gabriel here, and then ourselves being ELSEC. And so in this case, my name is Ulrich Seldesachs. I'm the project coordinator and also the managing director of ELSEC. But next to that, there's also some additional technical partners. In this case, there's CyberRanges. We had done a webinar last week with the range facilities. CU as a technical platform on risk monitoring. Torion that's providing us with insights in methodologies and capabilities on doing vulnerability assessments and pen testing. And of course, we are supported in this case by the European Cybersecurity Competence Center based in Romania, and through the European Commission itself, of course. So the benefits for participants, the open calls is not the only thing that we do, but it does provide you with some interesting benefits. But beyond that, we will also be able to provide our open call participants with some additional support, that is mentoring, that is technical insights, and there is also quite a lot of insights on going to market and providing your services in addition to the rest of the market. Teaming up, of course, with other of the applicants and the rest of the market in that respect. So on the KISD website, for instance, you can find some of those methodologies that we are already offering. Those have been scrutinized and collected by the different partners within the consortium led by Torion. And then you can also find on the website a specific sub-website with a list of tools that can be used for pen testing or vulnerability assessments. But in order to be able to do that properly, of course, you need to be having some guidance on what you can and cannot do. So the mastering of cybersecurity compliance and testing is the main topic of today. And well, welcome in any case, Mihaela and Gabriel. Good to have you here. Mihaela, maybe a short word of welcome from your side in the first place.
Hello, welcome to this webinar. I'm glad to be here to talk about our project and our research in this project. And I hope that this discussion will be fruitfully used by our attendees. And as you were saying, we were talking about KISD and also about our topic today about um, the research we made in the legal aspects of pen test and European frameworks and what we've been analyzing, applying to pen test from the European regulation. So we will see that in the first place. And then my colleague Gabriel will talk about CVD and how we can apply these regulatory frameworks in the pen test activity. So this
Super.
is what
Okay.
I will talk
Super.
about.
Looking forward to that. I'll just finish off here and then I'll hand it over to the both of you. So just for people to know that we also have some additional webinars following up in the next couple of weeks. And some of the ones that we have already done, you can basically find through the KISD website. They have been recorded. Just to remind people about the next steps after this webinar is specifically to try and find potentially some of those vulnerability environments that might need to be pen tested. Definitely start with the open call application and with some of the insights that you're getting today, of course, from the regulatory frameworks and the challenges in relation. And then, of course, it's not to forget to make sure that you also follow us throughout the lifetime of the project. The KISD activities will run for another 3.5 years, and in that period of time, we will be establishing also a community to share our expertise. So with this, I'll hand it over finally to the both of you, and I wish you a good interaction and discussion. And if attendees have any questions or any comments, then please don't hesitate to use both the chat function or the Q&A function. And the colleague moderators will be following up and will link it directly back into the webinar. So without further ado, Mihaela and Gabriel, take us for a ride, please.
Okay, I will share my presentation. Just a second. I'm not sure what you can see.
Yes, we can. We can see your browser
Okay,
screen right now.
okay, just a second.
And now we can see the presentation.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so my topic today is about the regulatory landscape and about security testing, cybersecurity testing. Again, my name is Mihaela. I'm a cybersecurity expert, risk and threat expert at the NSC. That's the National Directorate for Cybersecurity in Romania. But today my role here is to talk about our project, our analyze in CYSSDE project, and the analyze we've made in the regulatory landscape, European regulatory landscape about pen testing and cybersecurity testing, vulnerability assessment, and all about this legal landscape of pen test. We will talk today about, as I was saying, regulatory context and the key impacts of these regulatory frameworks, about practical consideration in penetration testing. So we will apply a little bit the knowledge, the legal knowledge, and how we can be compliant and future directions in this section in this domain. About regulatory context, we can say, all of us, that this cybersecurity, this cybersecurity domain is a domain that it's growing every day, and that attacks have evolved continuously. So this is why the European framework in this field is growing also every day. It's improving because at European level, they consider that it's necessary to evolve in the same way as the attacks and the threats in this field. So as we can see, the threats evolved, advanced, and also the regulatory framework has to evolve also. So this is why the European regulation needs to have some steps ahead and to enforce stricter security controls for the companies in order to be compliant with the regulation that needs to be at the same level or kind of same level as the threats. Cybersecurity maturity in this way of approach things is the key to be compliant. It's not just about following rules and to avoid fines, but the goal is to have a cybersecurity culture. We will talk now about the regulation in this field, the regulation that we've been studying, analyzing, and how they can be applied for our CYSSDE project and in penetration testing field. So from our the analyze we've made, the most important cybersecurity frameworks and regulations are NIS2, that has come into force in October last year. DORA, that's we can talk about DORA in the financial sector, and also it's important because it has a mandatory threats-led penetration testing. That's we will talk about it a little bit. It's a more specific penetration testing that applies, as I said, to financial sector. About Cyber Resilient Act a little bit, who has whose most important aspect is the security by design required for digital products. About critical entities resilience directive, who's talking about that is talking about cyber physical resilience for critical infrastructure, and about GDPR, data security and privacy obligation. We've talked about NIS2 in the first place because it targets essential and important entities like energy, healthcare, finance, transport. And it's also important because it mandates risk-based security measures, including penetration testing and continuous vulnerability assessment. This is why we are starting with NIS2 as a basic regulatory legislation in the field, and then we will see its connection with the other European legislation. Why is affected? So, as I was talking about earlier, NIS2 speaks about essential and important entities across 18 sectors. I was talking about energy, finance, healthcare, and others. And why is NIS2 important? Because it requires mandatory risk-based security testing, as I was saying, pen test and vulnerability assessment. And also it says that any incident has to be reported in 24 or 72 to 72 hours. It depends of the sector, it depends of the type of incident. And also because it brings stronger oversight and enforcement in this cybersecurity field, and this is why it has the most significant impact for penetration testing. NIS2 is the base of the regulation, but for our purpose for pen testing, but it also intersects with other regulation. We've made this analyze to see how they intersect in this penetration testing field, and we've noticed that when NIS2 and Cyber Resilience Act, these two regulations intersect in the to secure software development. Also, NIS2 and Critical Entities Resilience Directive intersect in the integrating cyber and physical security, because cybersecurity is not an organization security is not only about the IT security. It also has a connection with the physical security part, and this is why they have to there has to be a connection between NIS2 and Critical Entities Resilience Directive, because we have to have a holistic approach of cybersecurity. Also, we have to consider the intersection between NIS2 and GDPR, because we have to strengthen data security and breach response, and this is why needs to intersect with all of these regulation in different aspects. So data protection, also physical security, also software development. Um, we are speaking here about supply chain security, and we are not talking about only about our organization. We are talking about the connection between the organization and also her suppliers, and needs for them to be also compliant with the European legislation in the cybersecurity field. I was talking earlier about DORA and financial sector and threat-led penetration testing. I was saying that TLP, I would say TLPT, is very important and specific because unlike traditional penetration tests, TLPT replicates real-world attack scenarios. So this is why it is a specific penetration test, and it's using intelligence-driven techniques that mirror how actually cybercriminal operates. It goes beyond standard vulnerability scanning by testing an organization's entire security posture. That includes how well detection and response mechanism work under simulated attacks. We are talking also about DORA because it's in specific for the financial institution, and as we know, attacks are targeting this sector because we are talking about finance, money, so they are under a constant attack. So this is why they have a specific legislation and specific tests, in my opinion, and it has to be overprotected. Under DORA, this sector must conduct TLPT regularly to assess the ability to face the threats in this field. Also, it's important how this to be a harmonization across Europe in this field, because one major advantage of TLPT under this regulation is cross-border recognition. So it's important to have this connection and sharing of results between the member states. If a financial institution operates in multiple EU countries, a single, well-conducted TLPT can be recognized across member states, and this is how we can reduce redundant testing efforts. The methodology is also standardized, ensuring consistency in how financial institutions assess their cyber resilience. No matter the states they operate in the EU. We will talk about now about how this penetration testing influence this penetration testing regulation influences the organization, because the regulation influences the organization from one side, and also influences the pen tester. So in the first place, we will talk about how they influence the organization. because the regulation is changing. The organization has to approach this penetration testing in a manner that could help her to be more resilient. It's not just about identifying vulnerabilities. It's about structure and risk-based security validation for the organization. The organization, as you can see, has to identify relevant regulation impact security testing. So basically, each sector must align the penetration testing with applicable law. Of course, we were talking about NIS2, that's the base for critical infrastructure. And we've talked about DORA in the financial sector. We were talking about Cyber Resilient Act for security software, and for everybody GDPR, of course. Also, when we are talking about defining the testing scope and prioritize critical access, we mean that regulation emphasize the risk-based testing. So that means that organizations should focus on security assessment, the high risk assess, we will say, whether financial transaction system, healthcare data, or industrial control networks. So organizations should establish their purpose and to choose, analyze the regulations in this field, in their field, and also establish their goal in order to pen test to be useful in their activity, and also have not to be only comply to the regulation, but to be effectively helpful for the organization. Also, cybersecurity being an ongoing process, it's not a one-time test. This process should be a continuous process, because regulatory framework require adapting to the evolving changes. So this is why organizations should think about this testing as an ongoing activity in order for them not only to be compliant, but to ensure that their organization is safe and can face the threats they are that may come in their field. We will talk about now about the pen testers side, according to the regulation, European regulation, because the pen tester is also impacted. Not only the organization has an impact, but regulation also shape how penetration testers operate. Compliance requires ethical, legal, and of course secure testing practices. So this is why the pen tester has also needs to be compliant also in his activity. He needs to understand legal constraints and ethical obligation. He it's not about only about the European regulation. We can talk about also the national laws and in industry regulation that depends of the domain he has to do the pen test. For example, in NIS2 mandates structured security testing for essential entities, while GDPR enforces strict data handling rules in all the domains. So the pen test, the first job of the pen tester is to establish the sector, establish the regulation, specific regulation, and also general regulation that are applying for the organization he is doing the pen test. The pen tester also has to ensure proper authorization and documentation, because an unauthorized testing can have legal consequences, obviously. So I think the clear contract and explicit authorization and traceable documentation are essential to ensure that testing remains compliant and doesn't break the law, let's say like that. Also, a pen tester has to maintain data security during testing to comply with GDPR. Of course, testers must protect sensitive data during testing. This includes avoiding unauthorized data extraction or using anonymized test environments, or ensure security handling of any collected data. So we can say that compliance-driven penetration testing isn't just about finding vulnerabilities. It's about doing that in the legal, ethical, and secure way to protect both the organization and also the pen tester. As I'm not saying the conclusion, as most important things that we've been analyzing about compliance in this penetration testing field is that under EU regulation, European regulation, we are not talking only about technical skills. Penetration testing, it's also a risk-driven, continuous, legally sound, and tailored type of test, tailored for each industry. As I was saying about later, that the pen tester should focus on the field he is testing. He's doing the testing. We have risk-based security and to prioritize high-impact vulnerabilities because penetration testing should align with risk management principles. I was talking about NIS2 and DORA. So the organization should focus on their most critical assessed first. For example, testing industrial control system in energy is very different from testing an online banking system in finance. Also, we can observe, we can see that traditional security audits are no longer enough. So this is why regulation like Cyber Resilience Act and DORA push for ongoing security validation. So integrating pen testing into this continuous monitoring and threat detection, it's an important step for the organization. For example, instead of annual tests, organization could do real-time security, could include doing real-time security assessment into their workflow, usual workflow. Also, security testing must follow CVD principles to ensure vulnerabilities are responsible, reported, and remediated. My colleague will talk a little bit later about these CVD principles and how these CVD rules can help in this pen test field. Um, uh, because in our opinion it's a very important part that could be included in the pen test activity. I was saying that pen test should be sector specific adapted because different rules apply to different sectors. For finance, I was talking about DORA. For healthcare, we can see other specific regulation, energy, and so on and so forth. This is why the pen tester and the organization should establish very clear the regulation that it's a specific regulation that it's applying to its domain. What we can understand from this analyzed regulation analyzed framework analyze that we've made is that cybersecurity regulation are transforming penetration testing from a best practice into a legal obligation. So compliance, it's no longer optional. It's an essential part of risk management, business continuity, and regulatory regulatory necessity. Organizations must integrate this penetration testing and vulnerability assessment into the regulatory compliance programs because we are not, as I was saying, we are not talking about only about compliance. We are talking about the need and the importance of this risk management and business continuity approach. This now ethical and legal considerations shape the security testing, how security testing is conducted. I was talking about here in this part about CVD that ensures ethical reporting to security flows. I was talking about the GDPR and DORA, who imposes strict rules on handling sensitive data during security testing. So penetration tests must follow legal boundaries because unauthorized testing can lead to legal consequences, of course. When we talk about future cybersecurity strategies, we are aware that it requires a continuous monitoring and an AI-driven security We can say that the evolution of cybersecurity regulation shows a movement to a real-time security validation rather than periodic audits, and that organizations should invest in cybersecurity automation in order to stay ahead of regulatory changes and emerging threats. The cybersecurity landscape, of course, will continue to evolve, and compliance-driven security testing will define resilience in this digital transformation. So organizations that will proactively adopt these practices, we consider that will not only meet regulatory requirements, but also will enhance their overall security posture. This is a short presentation of the analysis we've made in the project. Of course, the subject is very could be talked in a longer period of time. This is, as I was saying, the short version of the analysis we've made. We will welcome your question about that, and also it will be interesting that my colleague will continue the ideas from this presentation, and we'll talk about the specific way to about CVD and the specific way to use the data from the penetration testing in order to be not only compliant, but to use them to be helpful for the organization and for the others. But I will let him develop the subject in the next minutes. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mihaela. Well, hello everyone. Just a second to share my screen also. So welcome everyone. My name is Gabriel Niculescu. I work at the Romanian National Cybersecurity Directorate, a regulatory department. Today we will discuss about coordinated vulnerability disclosure and its crucial role in cybersecurity.
Excuse me, Gabriel, just a second. We are seeing your email, not your presentation.
You can see the presentation now or no?
No, still.
Okay, sorry. Let's do it one more time. Now?
Yes, now we can see the presentation.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. Continue.
As I was saying, today I will discuss about coordinated vulnerability disclosure and its crucial role in cybersecurity. In an era where cyber threats are constantly evolving, vulnerability management is essential to protect system, data, and critical infrastructure. I'll mention also that this project is supported by European Union, reflecting their commitment to strengthening cybersecurity resilience. Our discussion will focus on defining CVD, understanding its process, benefits, challenges, and regulatory framework, including NISA's role. What is a vulnerability? A vulnerability is a flaw or weakness in ICT product or services that can be exploited by cyber threats. Vulnerability can expose system to cyber attacks, leading to data breaches, operational disruption, and of course, financial losses. Different methods can be used to identify vulnerabilities, including penetration tests, bug bounty programs, and vulnerability assessment. What is a CVD policy? Well, a coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy is a structured process through which vulnerabilities are reported to the manufacturer or provider of the potential vulnerable ICT product or ICT service in a manner that allows it to diagnose and remedy the vulnerability before detailed vulnerability information is disclosed to third parties or to the public. The process should also include coordination between the reporting person and the provider of the ICT product or service, allowing him to diagnose and fix the issue before details are shared in public, reducing the risk of exploitation by malicious actors. A penetration test. What is a penetration test? Well, it's a controlled security assessment where ethical hackers simulate attacks to identify security weaknesses. Unlike automated vulnerability scans, penetration tests involve human expertise to detect and exploit potential security flaws before adversaries do. The CVD process mainly consists in 5 key steps. The first one is discovery. A security researcher or organization identifies a vulnerability. Reporting. The vulnerability is confidentially reported to the vendor or a CSIRT. Reporting includes close collaboration between the reporter and the owner or producer to identify the vulnerability and potentially help to remediation. So there must maintain a communication between the reporter and the supplier to help him identify the vulnerability, exactly how he uncovered it, and maybe help him to fix it. Then the next step is the assessment. The vendor verifies and evaluates the severity of the vulnerability. Evaluation can be carried out at several stages by the researcher, by the entity, and finally by the provider of the ICT service or the manufacturer of the potential vulnerable ICT product. So at first you may feel like the vulnerability it's not having a big impact, but after you report it, we might find out that it's more important than we actually thought initially. Mitigation development. A fix is developed and tested. We've seen cases where different fixes and updates were deployed and created chaos. Coordinated disclosure. When the fix is deployed, the vulnerability is responsibly disclosed to the public. It's published on the internet or other environments. This structured approach ensures that vulnerabilities are fixed before being exploited. General and particular aspect about CVDs. Well, CVD policies establish guidelines and responsible vulnerability reporting. However, many EU member states prohibit certain action in cybersecurity research. For example, it is generally illegal to deploy malware, to alter or delete data, gain unauthorized control of systems, or share the unauthorized access. Other prohibited action include brute force attacks, DOS, social engineering, and targeting physical security measures. The goal is to facilitate ethical security research while preventing harmful practices. Additionally, some countries have restricted ethical hacking activities on national security infrastructure. This means that in some jurisdictions, if the research was carried out on certain critical infrastructures, particularly those related to national security, the researcher could face legal consequences. CVD policy also involves creating a legal framework of protection for researchers. How this protection is put into practice may vary. Some countries have opted for this protection to apply automatically if the conditions of the research are met, while others have adopted a more complex process that may include a review of the researcher's action by a prosecutor to validate that the research was conducted within legal limits and, of course, in good faith. Also, there are the reporting deadlines and the channels may vary. Also, the timeline of the disclosure. The benefits of CVD. Well, CVD provides multiple benefits to cybersecurity ecosystem. It encourages collaboration between researchers, vendors, and regulators. Here I could add that some authorities are constantly maintaining and updating a wall of fame to recognize the efforts of researchers. Another benefit also is reduce risk of zero-day exploits by ensuring vulnerabilities are fixed before public disclosure. Ensures faster security patching, improving cybersecurity and resilience, and builds trust between stakeholders, fostering transparency in cybersecurity. Without a structured CVD process, security flaws can remain unpatched for long periods of time, increasing the risk of cybersecurity. When discussing the benefits of CVD, we can also corroborate them with the provision of the NIS2 directive, which promotes the creation of a collaborative environment, both within a specific sector and across different industries. Imagine the benefits of having a community where all participants regularly engage in vulnerability identification activities and openly share their findings with partners, including remediation strategies and best practices. This type of structured information exchange would significantly enhance cybersecurity resilience, allowing organizations to anticipate, mitigate, and respond to threats more effectively. Just think about it. How much stronger would the security posture of these entities be if this level of cooperation becomes the norm? Disclosing a vulnerability is not a negative thing. On the contrary, it's a positive thing that demonstrates a proactive approach. You have a problem, you found it before the attacker did, and you fixed it without any negative consequences for you or your customers. It shows that you are protecting your company, your customers, your business partners, and also contributing to a secure and resilient internal market. Challenges in CVD. As I was saying before, despite its benefits, there are some key challenges. Legal uncertainty. Many countries have different regulations, creating ambiguity. Risk of legal action. Ethical hackers might face prosecution despite good intention because their action can have an effect in several member states with different regulations. And there is a vendor resistance. Some organizations delay patching vulnerabilities or ignore reports. This chapter highlights the need for harmonized policies across EU. Another aspect to be mentioned is that discovered vulnerability may affect several entities, and if those entities are under jurisdiction of several member states, then there may be different interpretations of their actions taken by the researcher. What some consider legal, others might consider illegal. There are regulations that emphasize CVD, like NIS2 directive and Cyber Resilience Act. Of course, ENISA has a role in CVD policies. Actually, she plays a crucial role. I believe that last summer she got the new role as a CV numbering authority to assign an ID for vulnerabilities in the EU. Also, she developed and she's maintaining a European vulnerability database to centralize vulnerability tracking. It is not the only base. There are member states that have their own database. Those databases are constantly growing, either due to new vulnerabilities being identified and reported, or by interlinking with other databases, including the National Vulnerability Database of NIST. Having a complete and up-to-date database at union level will improve many processes. Supporting harmonized CVD policies across EU member states. Well, in 2023, ENISA has published a guide developing national vulnerabilities programs, guidelines that can be facilitate the adoption of aligned policies by member states. Our recommendation would be to follow and to know ENISA CVD guidelines and to check constantly the EUVD, to promote public-private partnerships to improve collaboration and also awareness. My belief is that a structured and unified approach will help the EU improve cybersecurity resilience. Conclusions. Well, coordinated vulnerability disclosure is essential for a resilient cybersecurity ecosystem at national level and for each entity. My recommendations would be to engage in vulnerability identification, coordinated vulnerability disclosure, and information sharing, proactive measures that will significantly increase the resilience of entities and also the entire internal market. In essence, if my colleague and I apply for a penetration test and we each identify a vulnerability, then we have one less worry. But if we exchange information about the vulnerabilities we have each identified. Then, with the same effort, we have doubled the benefits. And this information sharing, it's being promoted at EU level. Thank you very much. If there are questions, you can put them in the chat or send it to our email address.
Well, thank you, Gabriel, and thank you, Mihaela, for the presentation. Yes, let's see if there's any questions. Yurik, are you there?
Yes, he is.
Yes, nice. Okay, there's a question from Diana. Are there any industries, such as critical infrastructure companies, that will be prioritized in the assessment of the application, or all the companies have the same priority regardless of the industry?
So we do have a preference, as it's also written in the guide for applicants, on critical infrastructure and essential entities and important entities. So things which are related to what, for instance, in this case was presented by Mihaela and Gabriel. So those types of domains will have a preference, definitely, in the applications. Now, if there are assessments being done in relation to the CRA, so for instance on equipment, those equipments being used for essential entities and important entities are of course also more than relevant and will also be considered of higher interest.
Okay. That was the only question in the chat. If anyone has anything else to add, that's the time. Otherwise, you can also refer to our contacts on KISME website, or also to direct contact with Gabriel that he proposed.
Maybe a good pointer, Vinicius, is to remind people that we will be publishing a document which was authored by the team here of the NSC, Gabriel and Mihaela, on the topic that was mentioned. So there's actually already some documentation on the KISSDE website about this. So, but definitely in the future as well, we'll be trying to cover a bit more on the specific national legislations and requirements to ensure that, as Gabriel was pointing out, that in some member states it might be illegal, and in other member states it's actually more even a requirement to do those types of pen tests. So therefore, do stay tuned on the publication in a couple of weeks of this document.
Yes, also to remind that this webinar is going to be available on our website on kissde.eu, and also stay tuned for the next ones. Next week we have the info day, another info day for the open call number 2. So if you have any questions or any regards related to the open call or the registration process, please join the call, and then we can probably answer some of your questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mihaela and Gabriel, and looking forward to welcoming everybody again next week in the follow-up call on the open call documentation. Have a nice day.
Thank you also for the invitation. Bye.
Bye now.